We've just seen in the previous presentation that when we don't have many indicators available, we don't have many resources to do a survey, how we can differentiate different wards in a city in participation with the government officials and also take action. Because at the end of the day, it's the action that matters and the progress on the action. Coming one step below, we all know that all slums are also not equal. And carrying out a survey in slums to understand disparities between slums can be very expensive. In program settings, you need simple, low-cost, and very quick tools that can help you understand the urban health disparities between slums and also take action. And here we share with you how we adapted the WHO Urban Heart to assess disparities between slums using a qualitative methodology and how the response is now being taken in one of the cities called Indore in central India. We tried to assess and address health inequities between slum neighborhoods using an adaptation of WHO Urban Heart, and I'm going to walk you through the process. Indore city typifies any Indian city where government departments and local bodies will work sectorally. There are no indicators on slums. However, there is some potential. There are a network of slum-based community groups who are actively working for the health and well-being of their neighborhoods. In this scenario, we hypothesized that yes, we can assess health inequities between slum neighborhoods quickly, at low cost, in partnership with a network of slum-based women groups who are not only residents of these slums, but are also working for their well-being. And in this context, we adapted the WHO Urban Heart. One such network of slum-based community groups in Indore city is called Sampurn Mahila Samiti. Sampurn Mahila Samiti is basically a network of 37 women groups that are working in a large peri-urban and needy slum cluster. And they have intensive work in 12 most needy slums. So where we have 37 women groups, each women group has 10 to 12 members, and one democratically elected member from each of the group joins and forms a part of a congress or a federation. So the congress or the federation is nothing but actually a network of democratically elected leaders of these 37 women groups. So if there are 37 women groups, there will be 37 members. This federation today are a registered civil society organization. They have a bank account, they have office bearers. The training and monitoring and problem solving for these groups is done by our office in Indore city, and a small modest grant is given to the federation to carry out various activities. What are the activities does this Sampurn Federation do? They spread awareness about services, entitlements, and behaviors. They carry out neighborhood mapping to map populations, track left-outs and needy pockets. They submit collective petitions during public hearings to civic authorities. They provide this two-way community provider linkage. An important thing which they do is to generate and manage collective savings. And now they have just started involving children and forming children groups to support their needy peers and also engage in various constructive activities so that they can become better citizens of tomorrow. Why am I telling you all this story? Because this presentation was about urban heart and mapping inequities. This story has importance. These slum-based, active women groups who are residents of these slums are closest to deprivation. They know what they are going through. They know the challenges. They also know what their neighbors are going through, what the next cluster is going through. They have a lot of knowledge. They have a lot of wisdom. They have the spirit of volunteerism and working for their communities. Can these community groups also not tell which slum is better than the other, which slum is more poor than the other? Why is it always important to do a survey? Using this background in mind, we try to adapt the WHO Urban Hearth, which Dr. Siddharth mentioned in the previous presentation, to compare wards. We try to adapt it, to do little desk work, to come out with certain indicators to compare slums. And these are some of the indicators that we came up with. Like, I'll just go through one each. For example, comparing slums based on housing and physical environment, based on whether garbage is collected regularly. This is something any slum dweller can say. Tobacco consumption or alcohol consumption in slums or pockets of slums. In poverty and economics, comparing slums based on number of households that have a roof or wall of the house of semi-permanent material. This is observable. People can tell. And we also added a number of indicators on community level governance. The reason is that because community level governance impacts inequities. If a community is strong, there is a likelihood that there's going to be a better access to services as compared to when the community is not active. So we added a few indicators like that. For example, if a community group is active in that slum where we're working and we're working with these women groups, the likelihood is that they would have immunization camps being held regularly. There would be a slum level map available. They would have participated in public hearings and being more active. We did this desk work and we went off to Indore to sit with the women groups to form an Urban Hearth team. And this was our Urban Hearth team of community level representatives from the Federation, the Congress. She's the president of the Federation, the treasurer, secretary, and these are some other members of women groups here who could provide information about one or more slum. So that sitting in one place, in one small home, we could get information about 12 different slums. These are our people in Indore who are providing the linkage and monitoring support. So there were some times when the community representatives cannot provide information, but these are the people who are mentoring them and provide information, and they were we as facilitators. After we met, we tried to discuss these first level desk work of indicators that we had developed, but we needed to develop a criteria of how we can compare slums, and it was clear that we are not going to develop the criteria, let the community representatives themselves identify a criteria. As I'd already mentioned, that we are working in settings where there was no slum level quantitative data available, so we needed to use proxy indicators. So we used this traffic light signals, and for example, regularity and coverage of health outreach and immunization camps in the past 6 months. If this was the indicator, how to compare slums? It emerged very simply during the discussion that we kept a spatial map and we asked this question. If you can see, there's a spatial map in the center. And they came up with a criteria that's simple. Where camps are held regularly with good coverage, give them a green. Where health camps are held regularly but not with good coverage, give them a yellow. And where they're not held at all, give them a red. And all those indicators which we were showing you in the previous slide, they were a criteria to compare slums based on very simple qualitative methods emerged during the discussion using the collective knowledge and wisdom of the residents, of the active members of the slum. This is the Hearth process. You can see here we just used a chart paper and the indicators were written on the first column, 12 slums were listed on the others, and the Federation members are discussing and are putting red, yellow and green dots on the slums on various indicators. And in this fashion, we got 4 matrices. One such matrix is this. This is the information that we got on housing and physical infrastructure. And you can see here, we were able to get information on which is the bad indicators in one of the slums, and overall which indicator is bad across all the slums. These charts were then used to develop a response plan. Sorry. How was the response plan prepared? Now, the Federation of 37 members, they have the meeting every month. So once the matrix was prepared, in the next Federation meeting, these 4 chart papers were displayed, and our field staff, as you can see here, they asked the Federation members to just go through the charts And the competition started that, where I work, my slum is better, where you work, your slum is not really nice, but what can we do about it? And there was a lot of debate and discussion. There was a lot of excitement also. But we tried to get them to the point and we asked, okay, identify the topmost priority slum for which you need to do extra efforts. And also identify what extra effort you need to do. And it was these red dots, yellow dots that were used to identify the slum that needed extra efforts. For example, you can see here that this slum here, a lot of reds. So slums where there were more reds were identified as the priority slum. And this is how we got the priority slums on various domains of urban health. And these were the priority actions that they identified, and also they identified a way of how and when are they going to take the action. You can see here that a lot of the actions they identified were related to infrastructure. Now, if we were just doing a health survey, probably we would have asked only the health questions and probably done an intervention around those health questions. But their problem was not so much of health. The eighth priority action was regularizing health outreach camps. The first was paving of the main road in the by-lanes, because if the road is not paved, no health worker is going to come to that slum. The second was to install a garbage and regularize garbage collection. That was their issue and problem. The third was to set up a sewerage line, because that was a health issue for them. And finally, to build a bridge over a large drain, again, because sometimes these big drains, they cut off two different slums, and the community workers or families also do not want to pass through the slum. They also identified a way of how to do it is that by submitting petitions to the civic authorities and talking to them, gentle persuasion with them, using spatial maps to also aid them to understand where you need to install something, and gentle, non-confrontative persuasion. It's been 5 months now that these federation members are implementing their self-owned plan. And you can see here that there has been some progress for some of the indicators. I'll just share with you 2 scenes of change. You can see here the drain which I was talking of. Can you see here on this side, which is one slum and has nice roads, and so the community health provider will come, she'll do an immunization camp and she'll go there. But if you ask her that, can you walk this way through, and also please can you go there and provide immunization? She says, my clothes will get dirty so I can't go. This was an issue for them. Another problem is that this small cluster or slum was an illegal slum. Being illegal, being non-authorized, they're not entitled to any service. So what happens? However, there are a number of laws which say that now even health and nutrition services should be provided to all slums, irrespective of being listed or unlisted. So the federation members, because they had planned that this is one of the priority action for them, they went to the civic authorities with petitions, collective petitions, which they collected from various homes, but they never got any response. So they thought we should do something different. They asked 20 Indian rupees from every household, and they built a temporary bridge. No civic authority helps them, they help themselves. And today we have a bridge. It's temporary bridge, yes, during heavy rains it's going to fall off, but in the interim, they were able to come up with a solution through community contribution. Change does happen when you believe that residents of the community best know their problems. It's time we involve them in an assessment and analysis. Second case study. You can see here the paving that main road. This is the way the roads are. Okay, this is the main road to that slum. The inner roads are going to be worse. And there was a lot of problems. So they went to the civic authorities with petitions, and luckily they listened to them for this slum. And you can see halfway work has started.